Well, that's why they make blinds, right?
All right, we're good to go. So whenever you are ready, Dr. Rachi.
All right, well, thank you guys for coming. And so we're gonna go through some stuff on Pseo and dual credit. And if you have questions, make sure you ask. But I'll run through some things, and a lot of the questions you probably will ask, I will cover. But if something comes up that I'm not anticipating, please feel free to talk about it, and we'll talk about it. So a couple things first off the bat, we're gonna talk about the difference between dual credit and Pseo. So dual credit is really a class that a high school student can take at a local college or online if it's not local, and they get both high school and college credit for it at the exact same time. So that's why it's dual credit. So whatever their grade is in that class, they get it in their high school transcript, but then it also counts as college course too. Pseo is a Minnesota program that pays for the course out of tax dollars. So it's a pretty good deal for Minnesota residents. All you gotta do is fill out a form, I sign it, and it gets sent in, and then the state pays the college for the tuition for that course. So that's the difference between the two. Non-Minnesota residents, so like our international students or people from Wisconsin or other states, they can also do dual credit, but then you have to pay for the tuition. Now, we have an agreement with some, like with Bethany Lutheran College, they do a pretty significantly reduced rate for our students. So that's one place that we often steer out of state, non-Minnesota residents to take classes because they give us a pretty good rate for the students on that. I should mention that even Minnesota residents who forget to fill out the state form, they have to pay tuition too. So I'm always reminding the students that they need to make sure that they get that form in, otherwise your parents are not going to be happy. So taking courses then, so for juniors, they take courses online, so they're not leaving campus. And we tell them they've got to be asynchronous. So that means they're not logging in at the exact same time that the course is happening on the college campus. They're going to be taking courses where things are already pre-recorded, and then they can get to it on their own time. We have them take electives because we don't want them to put graduation in jeopardy if they take a college course and they realize it's not going well. And since it does count for high school and college credit, they do still have to meet high school graduation requirements. So we make them take electives. However, if some want to take a core course, so we're talking math, science, English, and social studies, we have an exemption for that. And that's listed in the document that's been posted in the daily announcements and in the parent weekly announcements. But I'm trying to remember what it is off the top of my head. I think it's a score of 20 on the pre-ACT or the ACT, and then also a 20 in reading, and then whatever course it is they want to take. So if it's a math course they want to take, they need to have a 20 in reading and a 20 in math. So that way we're sure, because most of online learning is reading, so they got to be able to comprehend what they're reading, and then we also want to make sure that they're prepared. So that's for juniors. Seniors, they can take core courses for graduation requirement, and a lot of them do. They can take asynchronous ones online, but they can also go off campus if they're full-time. And so we go by the federal definition of full-time. That's 12 credit hours at a college. It's full-time. So they can go off campus and do that. But they still have to take Religion 12 on campus. So I think this year we've got close to 10 students, seniors that are full-time. And so they're off campus the majority of the day, and then they come back for religion, either first hour or 8th hour, based on how their college schedule works. The popular schools that most of our, and I'm not promoting any of these. I'm not getting paid any stipends, although I probably could get some if I tried. But Bethany and Inver Hills are the two that most of our students choose. Bethany because, well, I'll get to that in a second, but Bethany works with us, so that really helps as far as keeping kids on track. Inver Hills because it's local. I would say number 3 is probably Northwestern right now, is probably the one that's in 3rd, but it really doesn't matter. Every state or every school in the state pretty much offers this because all the colleges want the state money for this. And as soon as they get the kids in their system, it's easier to recruit them. So just about everybody takes part of this. So any school that your student is thinking of, they're probably doing this program. So now how do they get these courses into the St. Croix schedule? So we're in the process of doing registration. Starting next week, they'll be choosing their classes. You probably signed the form for your students already. They need to sign up for all St. Croix classes. And then once they are enrolled in their college course, then we swap them out. So they fill out a plan, the dual credit Pseo plan for first and second semester. They submit it to me for approval. It looks like this. Basically, it just says what course you're going to take and which St. Croix course are you going to drop in replacement of that. And then I look it over, make sure it works with what their graduation requirements are and what they're planning on doing, and then I approve it. So they do that, and then once they're registered for the course, and this is something the students don't really pay attention to, there's 2 steps. You got to apply to the college, and then you have to register for the course. Sometimes they think, well, I just applied and I'm automatically in. Well, that's not how college works. They have to actually register for the course after they're accepted. So once they are enrolled in the course, they send me a screenshot or an email showing me that they have done it, and then we make the switch. The reason we go that route is because I've got about 50% of the students who don't follow through on the process. They all say they're going to, but then about 50% of them don't actually apply, don't register for the course, they forgot about it, they don't care anymore, all variety of things. And then once that happens, we stick an academic study hall into their schedule. So they might already have a regular study hall where it just says study hall. This one will say academic study hall, and that's a placeholder for their college course.
Question?
Yeah.
So the registration for the courses, so that's up to the parents and the student to do that through whichever school?
Yep, this is college.
So really, St. Croix has nothing to do with that end, with the registering end? Okay.
No, and that comes up here.
Okay.
On things that you should know is, this is college stuff. So the rigor for the courses is college level. So depending on where your student is in the continuum of their learning and what course they're doing, they might be actually skipping a level. So we want to make sure they're ready for that. The other part, with the college level part, I don't remember if I have it on here or somewhere else. Well, let me talk about professors second. So one of the big changes for students when they go from high school to college is to realize that their professors are not educators anymore. They don't have education degrees. They're not trained to be teachers. They're just smart people who know their thing, and they're sharing it at the college level. So it is very common for students to complain about the type of test that the professor is doing, or they're assigning too much at one time, and quite honestly, it doesn't matter. They got to do it. That's what the professor wants. They have to follow through. So it's really important that if they need a lot of help from a teacher, then a college course while they're in high school probably is not a wise idea. The grades are permanent, so unlike your high school grades, once you go to college, nobody cares about your high school transcript anymore. Once you hit college, it follows you. So if you apply to graduate school someday, these grades follow even when you're a junior in high school. So once you start a college transcript, it stays with you. Some jobs even require college transcripts. The schools are not going to contact you as a parent. This is a big one, I think. You have them here at St. Croix because you want to be involved in their education. Once they apply for college, you're out of the loop. Even if they're under 18, they will not contact you about anything. Everything is with the student. So if they're not following through on their assignments, you're not going to know. Maybe until a transcript arrives at your house, depending on how your student communicates with you. So it's really important that you are aware of that piece. This is a tripping point for some students too. So they sign up in high school for a class and it's the full year. Well, in college, they're semester based. So they're going to sign up for a first semester course. Then they're going to get an email around October saying, registration for second semester is coming, make sure you sign up. And then they forget that they're supposed to sign up for a second semester course. And then magically, the one they wanted is filled up. So it's really important that they're aware of this. I warn them, but still some that don't look at that and they forget about it. I don't remember if I have it on here. Yep, there it is. Communication versus via email. So everything from the college to your student is going to be via email. So if your student is not good at checking their email account, you really want to be on top of it with this, because that's where all the communication is going to come from. The registration, from the teacher, how to get into the course room, how to get their books, all that stuff's coming by their email account. So if they're not really good with that, you're going to want to make sure that you pay attention to that part. Not all students are ready, and that's okay. There's definite pros to Pseo and dual credit in high school, but there are also some unintended consequences. So one of them would be this. Naturally, you don't pay any money for the college course, but what it does do is it accelerates the decision time frame for your student. So if they're not sure what their major might be or what they want to do with their life, that decision is going to come quicker the more college credits they rack up. So for some who are just kind of struggling and saying, I'm not sure what I want to do, you don't want to go full bore into this, because that declaring of a major is going to come a lot faster. Maybe they need some more time to mature and figure out what gifts the Lord has given them and how they might use them. So that might be one area. Another area is just the responsibility part. I've had lots of students who are the good students who do really well in face-to-face school, but when it comes to online learning and when it comes to college, those are two different games. And they may have this part of school figured out, but the online part is very different. And the ability to keep on top of things and be self-paced and not have the academic dean asking them if they're on top of their stuff. I mean, nobody knows except them and their professor. And the professors oftentimes aren't very responsive, like not on a daily basis. So they've got to really be self-motivated and self-driven to make this thing work. And then school life balance too. This one I think is overlooked, but I would really encourage you as parents to think about this. Most college students take 4 classes, anywhere from 12 to 16 credits. They're probably not in a sport. They're probably not working, well, maybe they're working a job, but they're probably not in a bunch of extracurriculars. Our students here are really busy. They do 3 sports. They do choir, they do band, they do fine arts. They do things at home, they have jobs. So you gotta really kind of balance what your life is gonna be like out of school, within school. The rule of thumb for taking a college course is for every 1 credit hour of the course that's in person, you're supposed to reserve 2 to 3 hours outside of class for that much time. So a 3 credit course should be spending your student 9 to 12 hours a week. So you gotta think about dedicating that much time. Because these things are permanent, you do have to make some priorities as far as what you're doing. So for example, I've had every year, I tell the kids this, every year I have students in my office crying about, I did too much and what do I do? Really what has to drop then is not the college course, because that's permanent. So they gotta be willing to let go maybe one of the extracurriculars or one of the other things that they really enjoy. But when you step your foot into this, you have to be committed to this and be all in, because it will follow. And then also, because you are accelerating, a bunch of students will take a bunch. I have some students that are gonna be maybe second semester sophomores, or maybe even sophomores by the time they graduate high school, will be sophomores in college, and maybe close to being a junior. That accelerates everything, including what you're able to apply for financial aid and scholarships. They look at you not as a freshman anymore. They look at you as how many credits you've earned, and then that's your status. So that has impacts that way also. Some recommendations for me then. First, before jumping into a college course, I really recommend that students take an AP course, because that's an increased rigor course at the high school level. And then taking a college course after that's another step up. If you go straight from a normal high school class straight to a college class, that can be a pretty significant jump. So we have a number of AP courses, so I do recommend students have at least have done it or have tried one before attending a college one. I recommend that juniors start with 1 class, because you just don't know how your student's gonna react. You might think you do, but you just can't predict it. And I tell this story every year because it happens, but we have students fail college courses all the time. And it's not because they're not academically ready, it's the other side of things. It's the life, and it's the nobody looking over my shoulder, and it's just dealing with online classes. I had my valedictorian, when I was at a different school, failed a course right before graduation one year. So it can happen to anybody. So you want to make sure that you kind of dip your toe in to see how your student does with it before you go all in. So for juniors, I recommend 1. Number of courses, you can go up to 4 for seniors, but I don't recommend 3, because here's why. You're going to do a 1-for-1 swap when you're a junior. You're going to take 1 college class and then 1 that substitutes for 1 high school class. The same thing will be true if you do 2. But when you jump to 4 as a senior, you're full-time, and now you only need 1 high school class. So you're really taking 5 total, your 4 college plus your religion. If you go 3, you're taking 3 courses at college and 5 courses here. That is way too much. Anybody who's ever attempted that has been crying in my office because they did that. So I don't recommend going to 3. Go to 1 to 2. That works well, and 4 works well, but I have not seen 3 work well for most students. So I recommend you steer clear of the 3. And then, really be honest with what your commitments are outside of school. Are you willing to just go all in and dedicate your life to studying and not having a social life? Especially for seniors and juniors who are starting to get to the end of high school, they want to enjoy things. And that's okay, they can do that. But evaluating the outside of school commitments is really important. Family things, job things, sports things, all those things add up and take time, and yet they should still sleep and eat. So we want them to do those things. And then for you as a parent, trust but verify. So you gotta, as your kids get older, you wanna trust them, but understand that every once in a while you should say, hey, log into your course and show me where you're at. Show me that you've completed things. The last thing you wanna do is hear about that your student's behind with a week to go in the semester and they're not gonna be able to make anything up. So I would recommend you spot check them. I don't think you need to check them all the time because at this age, they should start to show some responsibility, but let the leash out, but still let them know you're gonna check on them from time to time. And then this one, let your student drive the process. What I mean by that is this whole thing from filling out this form and doing the application and everything else, let your student drive it. If you have to push them and push them and push them to do this, they're probably not ready because it'll show up in the coursework then. So I'm okay with 50% of our students not following through on this process because that's just the natural weeding out of they weren't gonna do well in the course anyway. And again, that's okay. They're just not developmentally ready to take on that responsibility. So as a parent, I would caution you from doing everything for them for this, because ultimately what your end goal is for them to be successful in college. And you don't want to have to do college again or do it for them. So if they're not following through, I would say, hey, did you submit that form to school yet? Did you do this? But make them fill out the application, make them do the form, make them come to you to get things signed, and that's gonna give you a pretty good indication on if they're gonna take this seriously and really buy into it. So here's the process. The first thing is to fill out this plan in the form that I've been showing you by April 22nd. So that's a long time from now, so there's a lot of research that can be done. There's a lot of talking with me or Mr. Cook or the other advisors about what they can take. Again, because we're doing registration for St. Croix regardless, this gets pushed off a little bit. So you got till April 22nd to get that form to me. In the meantime, they should be applying. Once it's approved by me, start applying to the college, get through all the process of that. There's forms in the office, both that application and the form that you have to sign for the state. It's on the Pseo website if you want more information there too, just the Department of Ed. And then complete step 1 by April 22nd. If they miss the April 22nd deadline, they're not gonna do it next year. we'll let them wait till the following year. And then once they're accepted, and again, it's gonna come by email, so they're gonna be watching that, then they need to register for their classes and know when that registration window opens. And again, it's first come, first serve on registration. So, some schools have very different time frames on when registration happens. Some actually, and I don't like this, but some won't even let the Pseo students register until after their current students have registered, which puts them at the end of the line. Some open it up to everybody, including Pseo students, so you want to make sure you're on top of that. Bethany opens right away, Inver Hills opens right away. I'm trying to remember who else does. Pretty much a lot of them do, but there are a couple that won't let you even register till July. And I know which ones those are, so if you happen to tell me, oh, I can't get you the registration by the end of the school year, I'll say, I know, that school doesn't let you. The problem with that is, when it's delayed that much, you're not guaranteed the slot into that class, and you might be scrambling for a chair when the music stops. So I do recommend going to the ones that let you register right away so you know what you've got. And then again, it's an application to get into the school, and then it's a registration to get into the class after. And then here's the dates. So we need an ACT score, or if they've taken the pre-ACT here, we can use that score. There's an April 2nd test coming up. March 11th is the last day to register for that. And then the ACT test on the 2nd, and then the 22nd to get the deadline, or for the plan to get the deadline in, or the deadline to get the plan in, sorry. And then on the last day of school, give me confirmation that they've actually enrolled in the course. So that's my whole spiel. Questions from you? Yes, sir.
So for instance, so my son will be a junior next year. He's already choosing the courses for next year now, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm just wondering the timing, if you need to register, so your St. Croix class schedule is gonna be set before you would register for.
So
A
St.
PSO
Croix is the
class.
priority.
Right.
We register everyone like they're here full-time next year. And then we get all that registration information. That helps us plan staffing and schedules and things like that. And then that comes out later in the spring, maybe the beginning or right as school gets out. In the meantime, if you're planning on doing this, you're applying with the idea that, let's say I'm gonna take an English class. If I get into this college English class, that's gonna replace my St. Croix English class.
Right, so that's the other question I have. Do you, the swapping, so do you look at that and you evaluate it and see which one is best to swap, or how does that work?
Typically you go 1 for 1 because it's gotta apply to your high school graduation unless it's an elective. So if you wanna take an English class, you're gonna swap it for your English class because you want it to count for your high school graduation requirement and your college one.
Okay.
If it's an elective, like you're taking a sociology class, that can swap in for AP Psych or Foods or VRA. I mean, you have your choice as far as what you want that to substitute for.
And that's noted on the plan that we turn in, that the
Correct.
student turns into you.
Yep.
Okay, and when does that swapping need to take place by? Is that the
The-
June 3rd? Or?
Well, after this, and usually this is when I want to see that they're registered, and so then I can go into their schedule and take them out of the course, the St. Croix course that they had signed up for, and put the academic study hall in. That's when we would like that to happen.
Okay, so June 3rd.
One thing I didn't put in here that might be of interest to you is, okay, what classes should my student even look at? Minnesota's got a great thing called the Minnesota Transfer Curriculum, where it's basically an agreement between all the Minnesota State colleges and universities that these courses will transfer. So those are great places to look. And you just take the basic prereqs. So take your English, take your literature, get a social studies in there, get a science in there. They want a life science and a lab science. The lab sciences probably aren't great for PSEO unless you're on campus, but it'll lay out all the different classified areas that they have to take a class. And I can always help the student looking at that too, but taking the basic courses is what's most recommended because you don't necessarily know where you're gonna end up transferring. these credits too, so you wanna make sure that they're the basic ones. You don't wanna take something super specific that might not go somewhere. Yes, ma'am?
So what standardized tests are they doing now at the sophomore level that will qualify them to go?
The
And
pre-ACT.
So okay, so the PSAT, and that's, that.
The PSAT is something different. The pre-ACT is what we
Oh, the
do here.
Aspire, right? Yeah, okay, so that is going to give them a qualifying score,
Yep.
and they all have that on file right now?
If they took the test, yes.
So it's just part of their test day? It's
Yep.
standardized test day, right? So they would have had to opt out of it?
They would have had to not show up or
Okay.
not take it, yes.
Okay, so in theory, all students already have that on file and wouldn't have to do.
All sophomores take that.
All sophomores, so
Yep.
assuming that they got at least a 20. And then the second question is, I've been in college for a very long time. High schools are very different than when I went to high school, so I'm not used to this whole idea of being able to retake everything, turn everything in and then do it again. What's happening at the college level? Is it old school, like you do it once, your score, and you move on?
It depends on the professor. I've had some kids that they don't do well on something, they contact the professor will work with them. But that does bring up another point that I didn't bring up, is you have to pay attention to the college calendar. So for example, when we're on spring break or Christmas break, they might still have to do their college courses and still have things due, because they've got to follow that schedule. So it's two things to keep track of with that.
So are you saying that it's mostly redoable or mostly not? I guess that would be helpful to know. You maybe don't know, but,
I only hear about things when there's problems usually,
yeah.
when they want help. So there are times when I have seen, and I'll say it this way, we're live, so I should probably be careful what I say. But it is very common for college professors not to be on top of their correcting load.
Sure.
So kids won't even know how they've done for weeks, and it might even pile up to the end of the year. Now, they're not used to that because they're used to here having things updated very regularly. But again, they're not educators at the college level unless you're going into education. So they're not being on top of the correcting the same way that we would be here in the building. So sometimes students do get bombarded. All of a sudden they've got 5 things that have been entered in the grade book and they don't like the result of them. And sometimes I have had to help students talk to their professor about things.
I would say, so I have a couple of kids in college, and I would say it is not redoable for the majority of their classes. It's kind of, you turn it in, you're done.
We had a question online.
Sure.
As a junior and not sure about Pseo, should they still take the ACT on April 2nd?
I would. The way the ACT works now is I would plan on your student doing it at least twice. I would take it in the spring of their sophomore year and in the fall of their junior year. Because a lot of schools now are going to the super score, where they're taking the best score of those and putting it together. So ACT is smart about it. The more times you take it, the more money they get. So they're not shy about it. And it's not a bad thing to take it more than once. I would say at minimum you should take it twice. And if you don't like the 2 times, take it a third your senior year. But yeah, that's recommended. The amount of money on scholarships just between a couple points on an ACT is fairly significant, so you might as well. It's worth the $70 or whatever you pay for the test now.
So not all students have taken the ACT, you had to pay for it?
Correct. Now, we offered the ACT to the juniors here this year, and a lot of them did it at a pretty reduced rate. I don't remember what we charged, but it wasn't the full price because we hosted it here. But not everybody did it.
Okay, but they still can this year, or is it?
We do it every October.
Oh, so they have to wait till next year?
Yep.
Or you can take it at another location. So the ACT website will have where it's,
It
you
would
would
just
post
cost
it.
more if we went somewhere else?
Yeah, so right now, I think the close ones, one of the popular ones is Holy Angels over in Richfield. They do the April 2nd. I think there's another couple high schools in the South Metro that do it. But if you go to the ACT main website, they'll show you all the locations where you can take a test.
And they have to get a 20
Composite,
and
yep.
do the PSEO credit?
Yep.
Okay. And that's even the electives?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we want to make sure that their academics is high enough that they're able to handle the rigor.
Okay.
And there has been some talk that, well, these colleges don't require a standardized test score anymore. What they're not telling you that is if you want to qualify for scholarships, they want an ACT score or an SAT score. So it is well worth the time to do it. And I would recommend that you pick up, like, you know, in the bookstore, an ACT prep book. They've got a lot of practice tests in there, and it's fairly cheap. I picked up one for my son. It had 8 practice tests in it, 4 on paper and 4 online. It was great. And it gave a lot of good test tips and things like that. So I'd recommend doing that also.
Okay, so my daughter's gonna be a senior, could she take it next year and still do a PSEO second semester next year? Or is it, when does this end? Do they have to be in high school to get the PSEO?
Oh, PSEO? Oh, good question. Yeah, you have to be in high school for this program. So there are some students who talk about, well, can I graduate early? And I'm like, you don't want to graduate early. You want to graduate on time, because the more you're in high school, the more the state will pay for the money. Once you graduate in June, it's over. So we want to keep them in high school and get the free tuition
So she
versus,
should probably do the ACT this spring
yep,
and do a full year of PSEO next year.
yep.
And she can just do 1 credit first and second semester.
Yeah, you can take 1 class a semester. You can, I've had some students who say, I'd like to try 1 the first semester, and then if it goes well, could I do 2 in the second? Sure, as long as we have a plan that works and it works in the schedule, sure.
That the June 3rd day, it just brought, is that for the first semester then? Is there a December date that they need to
Yeah, I don't
let
set a
you know
deadline
by
for
so they
the,
can swap it out for second
I don't-
semester?
give them 1 for the second, maybe I should, but I just want them to make sure they're registered. And if they can get the class, we'll swap it out as soon as it happens.
Okay.
And because the way our semester doesn't end till the middle of January.
It doesn't, yeah.
They're gonna start their second semester course prior to that. So sometimes there's a little overlap. So they're a little bit more motivated to get that in. And plus with me hounding them, to make sure they sign up for that course, because especially if they're taking the graduation requirement. So a popular one for the seniors is to take a government and government 1 semester and an economics class the second. And if they don't get into that econ class, they realize their graduation's on the line. So we either gotta find them a new school to go to where they can get into that class, or we gotta find some way to make it work.
What percentage of students take advantage of this opportunity?
We have about 50 students this year doing it out of the juniors and senior class.
And there's roughly 150 in each of those classes.
Mhm.
Do they do it during the school day or is it out of school that they do this?
The idea is that academic study hall is used for their college class. But as I wander through the study hall, I know what the study hall is sometimes used for, and it's not academics. But that is the time that's set aside for them to do that.
You said it is the college course. When you're on a college campus, you have the college resources there. So can you speak to that? Like, you know, the college library, things like that, they don't have really access to that. So is that
Yeah.
a problem? Do the students need to log on or buy extra resources or books or to take these courses?
That's a good question. So through the state, it is covered totally. So the book cost is covered also. They have to fill out a form at most of the colleges to get the books paid for. But a lot of times, it's all online. They can buy their books online, and then they just either pick them up at the college library or they can have them shipped to their house. But the colleges are really good with everything being online now, especially because they realize PSEO is kind of one of their main streams of revenue.
Sure.
And the online piece is an important part of that, because not every kid's gonna be able to drive to their campus. So that part's open, depending on the school, but I've heard some schools that say, like some of the bigger ones, they have the same resources as on-campus kids. So like the rec centers, the library, all that stuff is available to them because they are a student at that school. Now, I haven't heard too many of our kids going over to the U of M and using their workout facilities, but just because of how busy they are, but it's available.
I was wondering maybe like for a literature class or something, if they need, access to the library or a certain system in the library, on the on-campus library, but that doesn't seem to be a problem. They
It's not.
access to.
Most library access now is virtual. And if they need a physical book, they'll ship it to them. But a lot of that stuff is already PDF'd and available virtually on the library website.
Another online question, does SCLA reduce tuition for full-time PSEO students?
Yes, in this, and it's linked in the daily announcements and in the parent news, there's about a 4-page document in here that details what the tuition reduction is, based on how many St. Croix courses they're taking. So naturally, if you're a full-time senior and you're taking one religion class, that's the biggest reduction. The follow-up question to that probably is the financial aid implication. So what the business office does, if you get a reduced rate for PSEO, you're not eligible for financial aid. But you're gonna run the financial aid numbers based off them doing all the stuff that they're doing now, fully classes from St. Croix. And whatever the better of the two deals is, the business office will let you have that. So either the reduced PSEO schedule or whatever your financial aid number was coming back as.
What are you seeing on the online campuses for vaccine requirements? Is that a thing?
I've not heard of anything like that. Masks, yes, but I haven't heard anything about vaccines.
For online classes?
Not online, if they go visit the campus.
Oh, okay. Okay.
For the ones that travel to like
Right,
Inver
visit
Hills or
reps.
things like that,
Got it.
they're masking, but I have not heard anything about requiring students to be vaccinated.
So when do they go to the college to do their class? If you're saying they do it in the study hall here, then when would there be the opportunity to go to the college?
So only seniors who are full-time are allowed to leave campus and go to the physical location of the college.
Full-time, so four
Yep.
credits then?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we purposefully put Religion 12 as a first set class and as an 8th set class, so that way they can choose which of those they want that works best with their college schedule. And we do have students who make a switch at the semester, like first hour was best in the fall semester, and then come winter semester, like, well, maybe the 8th set would be better based on my schedule, and so we'll swap them that way too. But otherwise, they're online.
Yeah, to say, if they're just taking one college class, it's
They
an
would
online
just stay
class.
online and stay here. Okay.
Anything else coming from our virtual folk?
Don't hear that about now, Stacy.
How long does it take to get your ACT test corrected, or how long does it take to get your score?
That's
Is
a
that
good
like
question.
days now, or?
It's
It
not
used to
quite
be like
days.
A month or something?
I don't think it's quite a month anymore.
Okay.
I think it's about 2 weeks
yeah.
when they get results. They get an email when the results are back to the student. They all get it at the same time. It's kind of funny.
All right, well, if we don't have any other ones, you can contact me anytime if you have more questions. There's that sheet I keep holding up, all the info and a lot of questions in there, so if you forget what I've said here, that'll be available in that document that's in the Parent Weekly News and then in the students' daily announcements also. But I really recommend that if your student is ready for it, it's a great opportunity, but be honest with yourself and your student too. If they're not ready, it's not a great thing. So it really depends on where your student's at and what they're gonna do. But let me know if you have any more questions or if I can help. If you wanna sit down and talk specifically about different options, I'm willing to do that as well, so just let me know.
So the hard copy, was that this week's parent
It'll be, I
Just
know it's
continuously?
I know it's coming out tomorrow,
Okay.
but this is in the student daily announcements also. All right, thank you.
Thank you.